Okay, Dad, if you wanted to take a moment to apologize, I think it would expedite this release process.
I'm not going to admit guilt to something I didn't do.
Just apologize for what you did.
Dead Man's Wire is imagined as a gripping, intense true crime thriller that blends emotional depth with edge-of-your-seat suspense. The film takes a real-world mystery and transforms it into a cinematic journey through obsession, truth-seeking, and the blurry lines between justice and vengeance. Rather than presenting a simple whodunit, Dead Man's Wire treats its subject as a complex tapestry of conflicting motives, hidden secrets, and the haunting question of what happens when the truth is finally exposed. It is a story that feels both deeply personal and chillingly universal, rooted in human psychology as much as in investigation. At the heart of the movie is a case that has confounded authorities and fascinated the public for years. Long-buried reports, contradicting witness statements, and unexplained clues have turned the incident into folklore, rumor, and speculation. What happened those years ago remains unresolved, and this film frames the mystery not as a cold file, but as a living wound that continues to affect people's lives. The plot centers on a journalist who becomes consumed with finally unraveling the truth, driven as much by personal connection to the case as by professional ambition. Her pursuit is relentless, obsessive, and often at odds with those around her. Early in the story, we see that the incident involved a seemingly ordinary individual, someone whose life had no apparent connection to danger or wrongdoing. Yet the way events unfolded defied logic and expectation. The term Dead Man's Wire itself comes from a cryptic piece of evidence that became symbolic: a tangled length of wire found at the scene, its origin unknown and its purpose unanswered. It became the focal point for theories, rumors, and endless debate. Some saw it as deliberate, others as accidental, while a few believed it was planted to mislead. The ambiguity of this single artifact becomes a metaphor for the entire case. Nothing is as it seems, and every answer raises new questions. The journalist at the center of the narrative is complex and driven. Having grown up in the same town where the incident occurred, she carries memories of whispered conversations, unanswered questions, and a sense of injustice that never faded. When she is assigned the story, she doesn't see it as just another assignment. She sees it as a chance to give voice to the past, to reconcile unanswered questions, and maybe to find closure for herself and others who never moved on. Her dedication is inspiring but also isolating. Friends and colleagues begin to notice that her investigation is consuming her, pulling her deeper into archives, interviews, and the psychological weight of unresolved truth. As she retraces the steps of the original case, the film unfolds in a series of layered flashbacks, interviews, and reconstructed moments. Each piece of evidence is re-examined, reframed, and often challenged. Witnesses who once spoke confidently now waver. Records contain discrepancies. Memories conflict. What emerges is a portrait not of a single truth, but of many versions of truth, each shaped by perspective, fear, and self-interest. The movie plays with this uncertainty, immersing the audience in the frustration and tension that comes from chasing a truth that constantly slips out of focus. Alongside the journalist's journey, we meet the people whose lives were most impacted by the incident: a former detective who never closed the case, a family member of the person at the center of the mystery, a reclusive neighbor who remembers details no one else does. Each carries pieces of the puzzle, and each brings their own emotional baggage. Their stories add humanity to the investigation, reminding the audience that real lives were affected, not just headlines. These interactions deepen the narrative, making it not just a mystery to be solved, but a series of personal reckonings where truth and pain intersect. Because the story is imagined as rooted in unresolved reality, the tension does not come only from what happened in the past, but from how those events continue to ripple outward. As the journalist digs deeper, she begins to uncover patterns of resistance: doors closed, records sealed, people who don't want the truth unearthed. Some fear legal repercussions, others fear exposure of their own failures, and a few genuinely believe that some truth should remain buried. This moral complexity elevates the film beyond a typical crime thriller, showing how the pursuit of truth can be both noble and dangerous. As the plot intensifies, Strange coincidences, unexplained sightings, and minor details that were once dismissed begin to coalesce into something larger. Objects long forgotten, letters buried in boxes, and old photographs take on new meaning under the journalist's scrutiny. The narrative uses these moments to create suspense not through cheap scares, but through the creeping realization that the story is more intricate and more personal than anyone believed. Every clue is a threshold into deeper uncertainty, and every revelation brings the potential for both clarity and danger. The writing cleverly uses pacing to oscillate between quiet reflection and high tension. Long sequences of archive sifting, interview revisits, and personal introspection are intercut with moments where the stakes feel immediate: and unexpected phone call, a break-in at the journalist's office, a strained confrontation with someone who knows more than they're saying. These shifts keep the audience emotionally engaged and constantly questioning what they believe about the mystery. The sense of unease is not just external but internal, as viewers begin to empathize with the protagonist's obsession and understand how the search for truth can blur the line between dedication and self-destruction. As the journalist grows closer to a breakthrough, the film introduces a moral dilemma that forces a choice between exposing the whole truth and protecting the people who would be hurt by it. This ambiguity is central to the narrative's emotional power. Truth, while valuable, is not always simple or pure. Some revelations could cause real-world harm, shatter reputations, and reopen old wounds. The movie explores this complexity without easy answers, showing that sometimes the search for truth has consequences that are heavier than expected. In the climax, she finally pieces together a sequence of events that, when viewed in totality, reveal a version of the incident that no one had fully seen before. It is a revelation that explains some things, complicates others, and ultimately reframes the entire narrative. The significance of the dead man's wire is revealed not as a simple artifact, but as a symbol of interconnected choices, moments where human intent, fear, chance, and consequence collided. The final scene does not deliver a neatly wrapped explanation. Instead, it offers a layered understanding that suggests truth is not singular, but multifaceted and lived differently by everyone involved. The ending leaves the protagonist changed, more aware of the cost of truth, but also more at peace with the idea that some mysteries can coexist with meaning. She publishes her findings, but the film does not treat this as a moment of triumph. Instead, it is portrayed as a reckoning, one that invites viewers to reflect on their own relationship with truth, memory, and consequence. The emotional weight lingers, reminding us that some stories are not solved by answers alone, but by the understanding that comes from seeing every perspective. Imagined performances in this film are subtle, grounded, and emotionally rich. The lead delivers fear, determination, and vulnerability in equal measure, making the audience feel her obsession and empathy. Supporting characters add nuance, each contributing a piece to the puzzle while carrying their own emotional histories. None of them feel like archetypes. Instead, they are fully realized individuals whose presence deepens the mystery and the narrative impact. Dead Man's Wire is more than a crime story, is a meditation on how events shape lives, how memory can deceive and reveal, and how truth, once found, can be both liberating and unsettling. It reminds viewers that every life has hidden layers, and every story has shadows as well as light. In doing so, the film doesn't just entertain, it resonates, provokes thought, and lingers long after the last frame fades.